Get ready for another episode of The Awake Space. I'm Lori Rivers, your host. And this is where you come for inspiration to help you with your aspirations and get some of the most important astrological information you can find on the internet to make sure you're up to date with the latest going-ons up there, because as above, so below. All right, so it's going to be a busy week coming up. We've got Saturn Retrograde on Sunday, May 23rd, which is also Coffee with Lori. If you're a patron, come join me. You get to do it for free. If you're not a patron, you don't want to be a patron, but you want to come to Coffee with Lori, go to wokeastrology.com and you'll find the link in the description here, and you can come. It's $15. You know, everybody brings their own coffee or beverage of choice at 11 a.m. Pacific, and you can bring your questions, bring your charts, ask me questions, and I will answer them. Big energy coming up with Saturn retrograde on May 23rd, because it's heading back to square Uranus directly later in June. Then we have the eclipse on the 26th, and then Mercury retrograde begins on May 29th. So it's quite a week. I don't think we'll forget this week coming up. There's going to be quite a lot of stuff happening. So what does Saturn retrograde mean? Well, I wrote about it on my blog. And you have to remember that Saturn, when direct, operates a little bit more like its Capricorn self, and it is in Aquarius, but it deals more with authority. It deals more with solid crystalline structures, etc. And then when it retrogrades, it acts a little bit more like its Aquarian self, which is a little bit more innovative, out of the box, less restrictive, still structured, but in a different kind of way. It's more collectively structured versus authoritarian and control and dominance. So support structures will be highly loosened, especially when it comes to crypto. So really keep paying attention to your wallets and use your best judgment when it comes to investments. It's still going to be highly, highly volatile. And as it turns retrograde, it does lose some support. But I have a theory that because the institutions are going to be a little gun shy, because they're going to, who knows, maybe it was the institutions trying to destabilize that market in the first place. I was a little dubious when cryptocurrency, finally got the attention of established financial houses, and kind of smell a rat. And when you look at the billionaires making their mouth music, which don't listen to the billionaires, they don't ever have your best interests at heart, guys. But anyway, I think the retailers might be able to take the market back for a little bit, wrest control of the market. I think we're going to see some interesting moves as we go into June. And I'm curious to see what happens. This is not trading advice. It's just Lori postulating on some astrological theories I have. So anyway, that's Saturn retrograde. People may end up feeling less restricted, but Saturn is the planet of consequences in both Aquarius and Capricorn. In anything it's in, it's logical consequences. I know people are saying it's the Lord of Karma. I don't look at karma the same way a lot of people do. And I wrote about that on my blog as well. So I don't want to, I suppose I could repeat it a little bit, but, to me, the universe is so big and so vast. And if there's infinite intelligence, I just have a hard time believing that if Guinevere has an affair with Lancelot in one lifetime, that they're doomed forever to have bad relationships going forward. I just don't see it working that way. So because of that, that's part of why I'm talking about this now. I want you to not be afraid, but do understand there are logical consequences. If you get mad and you have some road rage, there's going to be some stuff that happens. So consequences will be pretty quick. And in that unrestrictedness, let's say everybody goes, yay, we're all vaxxed, we don't have to wear masks, blah, 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 blah. I think we're going to see some repercussions in the fall. Both Saturn and Jupiter will go direct in October, and I think if we see unfettered loosening of restrictions and people acting kind of like kids who've had too much Kool-Aid, I think we're going to see some impact from that. So, think about it with care. Think about it with care. So, 1 second. All right. So now we're looking at the eclipse. And the eclipse happens at 5 degrees, 26 minutes of Sagittarius. Now that's very specific. Remember, every sign has 30 degrees. And there's this thing called orbs. And if you're a patron and you want to know more about this, go ahead and ask in the chat in Discord. But orbs are important. They're the separation by degree of between planets. So it's planetary relationships by degrees. Any astrologer who says all Geminis, all Sagittarius are going to be impacted by the eclipse is an inexperienced or uneducated astrologer. They're not an actual astrologer. We don't give blanket predictions. And I like to use an 8-degree orb. You can go to 10 degrees. Some people go out to 12. I don't use degrees that wide. Some people do. It's personal preference. I'm going to say if you have placements or angles, and those are house cusps, all right? Angles are house cusps, from 0 degrees to 13 degrees, 26 minutes of Gemini or Sagittarius, you will see the greater impact from this eclipse. Virgo or Pisces will have the next most profound experiences. Any planets that are in trine, that would be the Libras and the Geminis, the Aquarians, the fire signs, those are trines, the sextiles, you guys will feel it too in a certain way. But the people dealing with it the most are the mutable signs, the Geminis, Sagittarians, Virgos, and Pisces, because these are more creative or challenging positions. And if I'm confusing you, just let me know. Come into Discord, come into Patreon, or come to Coffee with Lori, and we'll talk about it. I'll show you on the whiteboard. For those of you who know me, I draw all over the screen, and I show you what I'm talking about physically. So orbs do matter. So myself, with a 2-degree natal Mars, a 2-degree Sagittarius natal Mars, that 5-degree, 26-minute eclipse is going to be very, very close in my first house. Yeah. But in my progress chart, which is pretty prominent in my life now because I'm over 45, and it's hitting in my 12th house, which is the subconscious and spiritual connection to source and all of that. So I expect it will be another unfolding consciously and less likely to be too big of a deal in my natal chart. I will make sure not to hit anyone that day. So I'll be asleep during it as well because it happens at 4:12 a.m. in my neck of the woods and on the West Coast. So it'll be in the early morning, 7:12 a.m. in the East Coast, So, so for a lot of us, it'll be fairly early on the 26th. So I do expect there to be massive traffic issues, a big crash somewhere, definitely communications stuff. There's going to be some either real whoppers or real truth-bearing come out on that eclipse within 3 days. So it will be shining the light of truth. There will be an expansion. I would definitely say this is a summer of an unfolding consciousness. So it could be like a mini awakening. Definitely those of you who just woke up are going to feel this in big ways. There's a lot of things that happen with eclipses. They're big change. They're very big change. So that's coming up. I'm writing a blog post about it as well, and you can head over to the Woke Astrology blog to read more about it. And I will have a forecast out for people on Patreon, probably definitely by Sunday, So that is important to know because you need to know how this is going to affect you and what part of life you're going to see the impact in. It will be a significant event, don't get me wrong. I just don't like to scare people. So, and there's no reason to be afraid. We live in a time of massive systemic change. I've been writing about it all through 2020. I've been talking about it. I'm not doing it to freak you out. I'm doing it to give you a heads up. How else can you take care of stuff if you don't know about it? So Gemini is communication. Sagittarius is higher knowledge, expansion. We're just going to see a lot to do with those subjects. And higher ed as well. So there'll be some announcements coming out of higher education with that eclipse. It might be nice to hear if student loans are canceled. That'd be kind of cool. That might be something that would occur in that kind of moon. No promises, but that just popped into my head. So yeah, there's a whole lot. Foreign travel may resume. There may be restrictions lifted from it. Again, use your best judgment. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that is Saturn retrograde's message to you. So, and then there's Mercury retrograde on the 29th. Mercury retrograde in Gemini. Remember, when Mercury is in forward motion, it operates more like Gemini. When it's in retrograde motion, it's more like Virgo. So it's a time to make sure you're reviewing and revising things. I'll talk about that in the next segment. How about that? Give you a chance to have a break. I'm going to drink a little bit of water here and get back to talking to you about all the things that are happening this week. Hey, I want to give a big shout out to the people who make this possible, my patrons. You can join us at patreon.com/The Awake Space. There's some awesome perks. One of them, you get shout outs here on the Awake Space podcast. But we also have astro guides, which are great pamphlets that help you learn astrology more in depth. We do coffee with Lori every other week. And I give forecasts every 2.5 days to astro adventurers and up. But all patrons, no matter the level, including my mystic muses at the $3 level, can join me for coffee with Lori. Every other week, it's on Sundays at 11, and we talk about things that are happening in the sky and what it means for you personally. You can ask me any astrological question, and I will answer it live with you. So, who do I want to thank today? We've got Brianna and Kristen, Marie, Priscilla, and I'm going to, let's see, we've got Shannon, Mike, Peyton, Kendall, Angela, Tessa, Carly, Joy, Betty, Veronica, Alma, Cindy, Tony, Jaden, Lowell, and we've got Carrie, Pam, Sonia, Dana, Yvonne, Vanessa, Melina, Dawn, Link, Sarah, Sharon, Amace, Brittany, Rhonda, Melissa, Oscaris, Annika, Elizabeth, Persephone, Shanoa, Sophie, Selena, Michelle, Maggie May, Caitlin, Savannah, Blair, Beth, and Elise. We have more, but I don't want this to go on and on. And so we'll do a bunch more on the next episode. You never know who or when I'm going to give a shout out. Thank you so much for your support. So 3 days after we have a total lunar eclipse, Mercury goes retrograde. Not only that, it's 3 days after we have a total lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, opposing Gemini, of course. And Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini. Oh, universe. Oh, universe. You so funny. So Gemini rules communications. It rules transportation. Sag rules the higher mind, learning, expansion. I always say if Gemini is the writing, Sagittarius is the publishing. Okay. If Gemini is the mind, Sagittarius is the many different ways and many different languages the mind communicates its thoughts. And so having Mercury retrograde in Gemini, it's not a terrible thing. The world's not going to end. It's not horrible. I don't know who started the stupid retrograde is a horrible thing. Look, things happen. If you're always just running, and you're not making sure your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, you need to stop and reflect and take a look at stuff. So it just so happens that it's easier to spot the things we missed during a retrograde period. So if we didn't do the car maintenance, we probably need to do it during Mercury retrograde, or it will become abundantly obvious we need to do it during retrograde. People say don't start new stuff. It's not true. You can begin things in retrograde. However, what is more likely to happen is you may have talked to someone about an idea in the past and you couldn't really get to it. You couldn't really make it work. Things got in the way. And during retrograde, it comes back up and you're able to start getting it organized and moving things forward. That is a really, really common occurrence during retrograde. I like to make, on TikTok, sometimes I do things tongue in cheek. And so I've got a really good video from the first retrograde of the year, Mercury retrograde of the year, where I said, hey, don't text your exes. And of course that freaks people out. And that's part of why I do it. I think it's kind of funny, but it's at the same time, really, if your ex is an ex for a reason, there's really no good time of year to text them, but they might come out of the woodwork. They might want to rekindle something. They might be feeling insecure. They're looking for security, or maybe they have had a change of heart and they want to communicate to you. They may not have. I don't know your situation. I don't know your story, but in general, we usually move on from people for usually good reasons. Not every time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. There's a whole lot of information that's been tossed around at us. Work from home, not work from home, get vaccinated, take off your mask, keep your mask on. And I think during Mercury retrograde, we're going to see people really, really frustrated by confusing communication. We've already had it. We didn't need Mercury retrograde to confuse us any further. I, for one, am vaccinated and I intend to keep wearing my mask. It's, I don't care that the likelihood of me getting it is reduced. I also know I haven't got the flu. I didn't catch any colds. It's even helped with my allergies. I'm going to keep my mask on. It works for me. But it's up to you what you do for you. I'm not going to sit and look at you. I'm looking at what I'm going to do. So what else can you do? We're going to see that on the political realm. I'll talk about this more in Patreon posts. Like I said, I'm doing, I do the forecasts there and I give the rising sign horoscopes so that you have a little heads up and just kind of an idea of the theme. Obviously, they're still general because it's not directly for your chart, right? So you have your own roadmap. It's a star map, okay? You have your own life map. It's called an astrology chart. And you're the only one who has it. There might be somebody who has something really similar, but you're the only one with exactly yours, okay? It takes 25,000 years to replicate a chart. So that being said, these things impact people in totally different ways. I always do well during Mercury retrograde. And before you ask, no, I do not have a natal Mercury retrograde, but I always do well because I'm more mindful. I slow down. I use the energy a lot like I've described it earlier in the podcast. When Mercury's moving forward, it's more like Gemini. It's very busy. It's moving. And when it's retrograde, it's more Virgoan in quality. It's about revision, revising, looking at what needs to be improved, taking a look with a critical eye. And when I say critical eye, I don't mean what most people mean as criticism. Real criticism is not what we do today, where we rip stuff apart and we nitpick at things. We look for the things that need refinement and improvement in criticism. It's actually what most people call constructive criticism, okay? Which is a redundant phrase because real criticism at its origin, the meaning is actually to improve. It's meant to help improve things. So I tend to do really well there. I'm a little more focused there. My brain's not as busy there. I'm a little more precise when that's going on. So remember, we all receive information, right? We're all intuitive beings. We all kind of have our own radio. That's our mind. Our Mercury is like a radio, and we're picking up signals. You can tune your tuner to what you want to pick up. And if you want to know more about that and you're a patron, go get the Astro Guide on instinct and intuition. Okay? Get that. Read through it. It'll give you some really good information. If you're not a patron, don't worry about it. I've got it up on my website. It's in the store. So you can, if you're on my app, you'll see it in the Wix app. So I'll link it in a blog post or something. But I've got the new Astro Guides up on the website. So you don't have to freak out about Mercury retrograde. All is not lost. And if you're tuning into the thought form that it's the worst possible thing, worst time of year, oh my God, it's in Gemini, then guess what kind of experience you're going to have? It's not going to be great. So switch your perception, because guess what? Mercury rules perceptions. So it's a time to take more deliberate control of your perceptions. And I'm not saying to bypass. I'm not saying to look at the pile of poo and call it rosebuds. I'm not saying that. But I am saying, switch your attention to refining and improving things. Okay? And it could be the little things. In fact, it is the little things that you need to be paying attention. Pay attention to the minutia, because you're usually overlooking it. Okay? So that's really it. So it is kind of a crazy week coming up just because it is a lot of energy. Remember, not everybody is super conscious. Not everybody is super deliberate in their thoughts. People can be very, very highly reactive. And you're going to see a lot of very highly reactive people starting May 23rd when Saturn retrogrades. And then on the 26th, that should be a royal shit show on the mass consciousness level. Okay. On an individual consciousness level, this could be very liberating. You might release the things holding you back from expansion. So this could be absolutely fantastic for you personally. But think about how people behave in a crowd, right? That's mass consciousness. It should be an interesting news cycle is all I have to say. I'll get more specific about that in Patreon. And then on the 29th, we have Mercury retrograde. So yay us, yay team humanity. And we'll just see what happens. So we'll talk more. I definitely want to see you come to Coffee with Lori because we can talk about this person to person on Zoom. Thank you very much.